Earnings week is going to be crazy this week with a lot of big tech companies. Most that we have in our portfolio are reporting this week. So in today's episode, I want to take a quick look at what are some analysts expecting for some of these big players and what are we as investors looking into when they report earnings. If this is your first time here, make sure to hit the thumbs up, make sure to hit the subscribe button, check out the pinned comment for free Discord, free newsletter, and a lot of great investing links. So let's get started. All right, so if we take a quick look at the calendar for this week, we can see we got a lot of big techs reporting on Tuesday after the market closes. But for me, I'm super excited about Wednesday and Thursday. I do believe we have a lot of nice both big tech and high growth stocks reporting that day. On Wednesday, the three companies that I'm going to take a quick look at are Meta Platforms, aka Facebook, that is reporting Wednesday after the market closes. Then I'm also going to take a quick look at Intel, which reports Thursday after the market closes, and Amazon, which also reports Thursday after the market closes. And the three that I mentioned, right, Meta Platforms will give us great insight about the overall kind of advertising market. We also have Amazon that can share us insight about the e-commerce market and the cloud market as well. And like I mentioned, Intel, we have another player in the semiconductor industry. Obviously this one is a big mover there, not as much growth there as we're going to see, but I do believe it can share a lot of great insight of what's happening in the overall market itself. All right, so let's take a quick look at what are kind of growth estimates expected this quarter. For Amazon, it's expected to rise 7.2%. Meta Platforms is expected to rise 8.5%, and Intel is actually expected to lose revenue about 6.86% compared to same time last year. A few things here just from these kind of estimates. First, looking at these numbers, I want to take a closer look at Intel. This is a company that's expected to go down 7%, but it is important to remember that they just recently sold out of a business, so that's obviously going to affect the overall revenue. Then the other two, right? These are supposed to be high growth stock names. Both Amazon and Meta Platforms about a year ago, 2 years ago, due to these COVID times, they were highly growth companies. And we can see now they're only expected to grow in the high single digits. Some investors might be worried about, hey, how are these no longer growth monsters? I do want to say sometimes it's kind of important to remember that these are comparable to a little bit abnormal times, same time last year. So always keep that in mind. Obviously, we are seeing a decrease in revenue growth, but we're going to see, I think the most important thing is the outlook that all these companies give us in the future. So let's start off with Meta Platforms. So Meta Platforms is expected to report about $28.2 billion in revenue. These are what analysts are expecting. A few things. This company 2 quarters ago actually missed on revenue expectations. And last quarter, it barely beat on revenue expectations. So it seems to be like always on the borderline. We saw it, they expect about $28.22 billion in revenue. The company in their most recent earnings, they did kind of give guidance of between 27 to 29 billion. So what analysts are expecting are right within the range that this company gave. Some of the big things affecting this company are, for example, the Apple iOS changes. They are also kind of seeing things with macroeconomics, especially with foreign currency. Another thing is them moving into video reels was not getting the monetization that they thought they were going to grab at the beginning. And right now they're really focusing on that growth. I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video and keep listening for this great offer we have for the community. The Motley Fool is a company that provides investing insight and stock recommendations for investors of all skill sets and risk levels. You all know how much I love researching new stocks and trying to find the next best investments. So I'm proud to partner with the Motley Fool to bring you a discount for one of my favorite services the Fool offers, the Motley Fool Stock Advisor. Go to fool.com/Jose to sign up and get access to a ton of expert stock picks. Every month you'll get 2 new picks that are aimed at growing your wealth and to help you realize your financial goals. Stock Advisor has been a market-beating service. So what are you waiting for? Thanks again for the Motley Fool. Now on to today's points. So now we know what kind of a revenue to kind of expect for Meta Platforms. Some other things that are important to kind of note for Meta Platforms is this is going to be the second quarter that they kind of show revenue between segments of family of apps and the reality labs, which is augmented reality and virtual reality. We can kind of see this is a company that loses a lot of money from its reality labs, and that's something that I believe we're going to continue to see, and unfortunately something investors are not so excited about. The other thing I want to mention is something investors are going to keep their eyes on are on capital expenditures. This is a company that from 2021, their capital expenditures grew dramatically, And in their most recent guidance, they reminded investors that for this full year of 2022, they expect the range of capital expenditure to be between $29 to $34 billion. That's at least 10 billion more than they did in 2021. So something to keep in mind of. I am an investor of Meta Platforms, and that doesn't necessarily worry me, but it is something I am keeping an eye on. Next, we have Intel. Analysts are expecting a revenue of somewhere between $18.32 billion. If we take a quick look at their most recent earnings, they did kind of give us a Q1 2022 outlook, and they expect about $18.3 billion in revenue. So exactly where analysts were, or what analysts are guiding towards too. This would be revenue down 1% year over year if we kind of take off that previous kind of segments that they've sold off. Obviously, if we include that segment, I do believe it's over like 6% decline in revenue growth. This is a company that, very similar like Meta Platforms, is kind of not shifting its directions, but definitely moving into a new directions. Intel not only provides solutions for consumer products, clouding products, but they're also trying to increase their manufacturing power and become a manufacturing kind of leader for the semiconductor industry. And all that requires a lot of investments. We are expected to see both their gross margins and earnings per share go down year over year. One of the main reasons is the increase of investments that they're doing. Some other things that investors are going to keep an eye on, especially me, is how this company is doing in client computing group. This is going to tell us a lot about the consumer market. We're also going to see the data center group. This one did grow year over year for them last quarter. I would expect growth in data center still for Intel. At the same time, there is a lot of competition for Intel in this space. So I definitely want to take a quick look at this to kind of give hindsight of where AMD might be doing when they report earnings next week. The final thing that I think investors should watch out for Intel is they have released a nice amount of products this year, or have a strong roadmap for this year. So I want to hear from management if there's any delays or what's happening with product development at the moment. Unfortunately, Intel has kind of been known for delaying their products a nice amount of times. So again, these are products in the consumer market, in the data center market, and now more importantly in the manufacturing stage as well. So something I am keeping my eyes on. Finally, the last company I want to take a quick look at today is Amazon. And Amazon analysts are expecting revenues of about $116 billion. If we take a quick look at guidance that they gave last earnings, they expect somewhere between 112 and 117 billion. So analysts are expecting somewhere within the range that they've given. I do want to say, in all the three companies that we saw, no analysts are expecting them to kind of go over the kind of the expectation or kind of the range that they gave. Again, I do want to say Amazon is going to tell us a lot about the consumer market spending and kind of how that e-commerce sales are they growing, or are they decreasing, are consumers kind of slowing down in this market. I also want to say that for Amazon, it is very important to remember that they come from two major segments, the AWS segment and their e-commerce segment. In forms of revenue, we can see that the e-commerce segment in their most trailing 12 months made up about 87% of total revenue. So if AWS does really, really well, I don't think it can kind of offset the revenue decline of e-commerce platforms, because it's such a huge number. So I do want to say, if you are an investor of Amazon, be worried not to just look at the top line numbers. You might see some headlines, hey, Amazon misses on revenue growth because maybe their e-commerce might slow down. I do believe the most important thing to kind of take a look at is things like operating income, because even though AWS is this company's smallest platform, this is where most of the money comes from. We can take a quick look at e-commerce in North America. Last quarter was a loss. In international, last quarter was even a bigger loss. But the only reason that Amazon was operating income positive was because of the huge growth from AWS. So for Amazon investors, I do want to say, be careful on just looking at revenue numbers. Take a quick look at some of those bottom line numbers as well. So I hope everybody enjoys today's episode. It was a quick highlight of what to expect this earnings and what am I keeping my eyes on. If this is your first time, again, make sure to hit the thumbs up, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Take care and have a good day.